Hello again, and welcome back to the Wives Club. My name is Margaret. I am a patron of Mr. Kevin Samuels. I simply booked a session with him to ask for his permission to stand up a community of like-minded and marriage-minded women within the privacy of his Patreon group. And I am so grateful. Not only did Kevin give us his permission, he actually came up with the name, the Wives Club. So the Wives Club is open to former wives, to current wives, and to future wives within the Patreon. Anyone with a marriage mindset, even if you're a guy who's looking for a wife, we'd love to have you up on the panel. So we have other wives in our group. I'll let them introduce themselves.
I am a future wife from the Boston area and looking forward to today's chat.
Okay, fantastic. And Lisa?
Hello everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm a current wife from the South Florida area and happy to be back.
Fantastic. And Hermisha?
Hi, everyone. I'm Hermisha. I am sort of like the wild card. I'm a pending former wife and happy to be part of this discussion and to contribute.
Fantastic. Okay, ladies, well, we've got a lot to talk about this week. I want to go ahead and kick it off with something that has been on my mind for a long time. Kevin has talked about this in several of his shows. You know, I am a mother, a lot of us are mothers. And, you know, how does that come into play in the dating space? You know, there's so many different schools of thought. There are some people that get right into a new relationship after a marriage or relationship ends as a mother. And there are some that say, you know what, I'm just going to put my kids first, and when they're 18, then I'll get back into the dating world. And there's pros and cons to each. My experience has been, and I've shared, I was married at 25 for 10 years to someone I knew since I was 18. And then after the divorce, I've been in another long-term relationship for 10 years with a high-value man. I've come a long way from being a modern woman to what I consider someone with a wife mindset. So I was actually talking to my guy this week, and you know, my boys are 12 and 14. So I've got a freshman in high school and one coming up behind. So, you know, we're starting to have that conversation about, you know, almost like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, thinking about college or military or whatever is next. And he actually complimented me for the financial position that I'm in as it relates to the children. And I just wanted to share, you know, with you, 46, you know, I'm closer to 50, or as Kevin would say, you know, half 100. And most of my peers are women in this, you know, no man's land kind of space. After my divorce, I basically, you know, met with a financial planner because I had to make sure that everything was in order because I knew it fell on me. So when it came to life insurance, I had to redo, you know, my mortgage basically to put everything in my name. I had to make sure that everything was set up with my kids as beneficiaries 50-50 when it comes to their college fund, when it comes to all of the provisions that you make. It was very hard. I was divorced in my 30s. And so meeting with a financial planner to talk about end of life care and the age that you want to stop working and all of those decisions. You know, I'm a very, you know, optimist type of person. I like to look at the bright side, you know, and that's one of the things that I do value about men is that they bring that logic and that structure in. And so, you know, part of the divorce decree required that I get a lot of this stuff in order. It was one of the best decisions that I made, even though it was hard, because it set me on a path to think about, if nobody comes to rescue me, are my children going to be provided for? And that requires sacrifice. I drive a car that I paid cash for that's over 10 years old. I own my own home and I'm paying it off quickly so that it can, you know, I can be debt-free. I have no college debt, but I live a very, I enjoy my life, but I like to think I live a modest life as far as some of the things in our community that are celebrated. I don't have designer, I have some gifts, but I don't wear, you know, designer shoes and bags, and I don't wear my wealth. I have basically put it in, you know, vehicles that will benefit my children. Luckily, you know, I have shared that I do work in tech, so I'm one of those that has a higher salary, but I don't use that to benefit myself. I use that to benefit my children. So why is that important? Now that I'm in a relationship and I'm looking at, you know, what life is going to look like for me when I'm 55, right? When Kevin talks about that, my guy has actually said, as a woman with children, when you're in a relationship with a man, high value or otherwise, and you're bringing them to the table, he's not only going to have to provide for you, but he's looking at, is he going to have to provide for these children? And because I shared with you all, he made me put a budget and share everything together with him. And because I'm in a very good financial position, not because of any magic, just because of starting early and being consistent, that is one way that your children can be an asset to a high value man, because they're not a liability. Because my home has appreciated, and basically when you look at the balance sheet at the end of the day, if something were to happen, I had to sell everything and pay off my debts, there is money to pass on to my children. So, as women, it's not one of the conversations that we like having, but when I think about, and I've made the decision, even though I'm in a relationship, we're not going to marry until the children are up and out, because I want to be mom when they're with me, and then I enjoy myself when they're gone. So I just wanted to share that, because, making sure that you've provided for your children and they're not going to be a burden is the responsibility that we have as mothers. All right. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to you. As you have this week.
So Maggie, I love that, especially being the resident banker, right? Like that's really how you can set things up to make sure that your children are not going to be a liability. Same here, definitely wanted to take care of a house on my own. But for this week, my first point was really along the lines of talking more about natural beauty. Some of the stuff that we see online, like if you think about YouTube, how many makeup gurus are there, right? There's so many. And I can't even tell you guys, like I used to watch certain people and like be so intrigued with the product and buy it. And then I feel like it didn't work. And I was just like, I only bought this because this person said it was cool, right? And we're in that consumerism culture where so many people are purchasing like beauty products and things like that, where like makeup has really gotten to the point where people are wearing too much of it. Right. And if you think about all the products that you're buying to put on your face, so you have foundation, you have concealer, you have eyeshadow, you have the eyeliner, you have the mascara, you have the, and all of the steps that goes into that. I think sometimes, and Kevin kind of talked about it, and I know Lisa, you're going to mention this in a second too. What if we take all of that away? And we just go back to normal? Because in the early 1900s, like women didn't wear this stuff, or if they did, it was very minimal. So it's just interesting to see how things have shifted. And just the advice I would give this week is get comfortable without wearing makeup from time to time. I think a lot of us have done it during COVID times, like being home, giving your skin a break. How much faster is it to get ready to go somewhere if you don't have to take all of those steps? Hence why I'm not wearing makeup today. That's my first point for this week.
I love it. And you are a natural beauty. Much for sharing that. I've struggled with that as well. I actually don't wear makeup. I just have lipstick on, and I fill in my brows. But men definitely appreciate that. They want to see us. They don't want to see, the clown version of us. There's a place for all of that, but none of us are on stage, right? If you ask most men, they want to see you. And that ties into what I said, saving money. This is my natural hair and I don't wear eyelashes and all of that. It's amazing what you can do with those resources. I could go on and on, but Lisa, I'm going to come to you. What did you have this week?
Oh yeah, so many good topics this week. But I was going to talk about, I was never big on makeup. I never wore, even before I had to wear glasses, because it's hard to wear makeup when you wear glasses like that I do. I can't do lashes and eyeliner because I can't see to put it on without my glasses. So, but when I was younger and you do makeup, I would do the bare minimum. I would do lip gloss and maybe some mascara or something real simple. And that was just to go out to the club or go out and just to be noticed or be seen. But every day at school, at work, I was just like, but there were other people that were just all about it. And I learned that, my husband, he doesn't like all that. He likes, just keep it simple. But when we do want to get glammed up, there's a reason to get glammed up. So I felt that conversation. It meant a lot to me. And I just hate to see that, you ask me where's my makeup bag, I don't have one. There's 2 items in my purse. And it's always been like that for me. I don't think I'm ever going to change. I don't know what they call it, cake in your face and all that. So I thought that was an interesting conversation. And the whole thing about if I were working or when I used to work, being in heels and all dolled up to go to work. And that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to get the job done. I'm not there to dress up. I mean, I know at the time when I was working, it was appropriate to look a certain way, but I would think back if I were to go back and have to do it all over again. And they changed the rules saying, you know, go in like the men go in, which I would most likely do. Of course, my clothes would be different, but that's how I would go to work. And I'd love to go to work in tennis shoes and stuff. So kudos to COVID for that, for, you know, making that more the thing to do. But the other thing I wanted to talk about this week that I really thought was a good conversation to have with our moms, and I know everybody could probably relate to this too, is you know, when he talked to the 20-year-old who was on the show, like, tell me what a wife is, and he's like, go ask your mom. She's like, but and she kept just getting around the question, and he was like, go ask your mom. And then she called on Tuesday on Instagram, and she called back on Thursday, but I thought was great. And he did let her, you know, even though it was a wrong conversation, he let her come back and say what she did. And so I was like, okay, so her mom admitted that she gave her the example of what a wife to be, of what a wife is, but she didn't really have the conversation. And because she's 20, she still got some time, which I was happy to hear. But I actually thought about it for my own self. And I was like, yeah, I asked my mom, I was like, did you train me to be a wife? She's like, yeah, I did. I was like, yeah, I thought you did too, because when I talked to my mom about for 30 minutes, I was like, yeah, you gave us a really great example. I wouldn't say you basically set us down and said, this is what it is to be a wife, but you, throughout my whole life, you provided me and my sisters with very great examples. And I'm just like, my mom was never shouting and cussing anybody out in the stores or getting obnoxious with anybody. She was always cool, calm, and collected. At home, she'd get in your, you know, but behind closed doors. But my mom was just always, God, I can't think of. I just can't think of anything that she just sat down and said, this is what you need to be a wife. So I just thought, for Kevin's show, I was like, you know, that's really hard answer for anybody, even for myself, to say, what did my mom teach me? She gave me a lot of, when I think back now, when I listen to what Kevin says about what you should be doing as a wife, I'm like, well, my mom, she taught me that, or I learned that from her. She didn't say this is what it is. But when he talks about it, I'm like, yeah, I can relate in saying that my mom gave me that example, or she, you know, she always presented what a wife should be doing. And then what Kevin talks about is I can always say, oh yeah, my mom did that. She didn't tell me that, but she gave me a great example. And also when I look back to my grandma and even my great grandma, who I can still remember, who was alive till I was about 20. I think about all the stuff he talks about, how slim they were, and looking at their pictures and seeing the people, when we talk about our family history or at family reunions, you look at the pictures of your family, they were all slender, well-built people, and they were working people, like my grandfather and great-grandfathers. They were all working men, whatever they did, their professions. But when he talks about look back at your history, I'm like, yeah, he's absolutely right. Nobody was overweight. Everybody was hardworking, you know, like he says, stay in a child's place. When you think about the stories, like, oh, grandpa did this or grandma, that's not my position. You know, that's what happened. That's their life. Just like in my life right now, I wouldn't want my daughter worried about what we're doing. That's not her place. So a lot of what he says just resonates and it makes sense. But I thought it was a good conversation to have, you know, with our moms who are still here, while we can ask them whether we felt like they did good or not. You know, what did you teach me and why? And also, you know, thanking my mom for you were a great example, and just explaining to her what I'm doing, listening to Kevin. I was like, well, it was just a conversation. So my mom was intrigued, and she's like, well, I'm glad you felt that way. And I asked my sister too. They're like, yeah, mommy, we call her mommy. Mommy was a great example. Mommy set she set the thing high, and we all I will agree, me and my sister will agree that we don't feel like we're at where my mom is in our mind, because she's so great. So, you know, we're all striving to be that. So I thought that was a good conversation for this week.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that one struck me. It was kind of like train up a child, right? I mean, I had the same experience, Lisa, just watching my mom do what my dad expected and learn his schedule. And your father likes this and your father doesn't do. And so I hated it at the time because I was like, oh, mom, there she goes again. But once you become a mom and you have a home of your own, it's like those things just kick in. So you're absolutely right. Hermisha, what did you have for this week?
Yes, lots of content, lots of excellent discussions. But to your point, ladies, you brought up just the essence of natural beauty, and as Black women and women of color, like that's a constant struggle in this world in general. But then also embracing all of ourselves. I those things are I think about that because on one hand, we're not saying that makeup is wrong, and I don't think men are saying that, but having a healthy balance with it where it doesn't completely define you. Like I like a good eyebrow, okay, and a good lip, and that's okay. But does that completely hinder you from showing all of you? So I think that it encourages us as women of color, women in general, to just embrace our natural. And I love what Kevin asked when he asked the women to rate themselves. He says, fresh face out the shower. How would you rate yourself? And so it really kind of causes us to kind of go back to like, what? Don't forget that part of you. That's who you are, and never lose that. If you put the lip on and the brow or the microblading, at the end of the day, are you comfortable with who you are when you get out that shower? And so I love that. And I have two girls myself. They're 4 and 8. One will be 5 in June. And so, to your point that to embrace all of them. And for myself in particular, I wear my faux locks. I actually had my locks. I grew them for 5 years, and I'm pretty transparent on my Instagram page, and showing women different ranges of myself and just who I am, because underneath this, I had to cut all of my hair off due to some relational stress. And one day, maybe I'll just rock my little fade as it grows out. But nonetheless, just embracing all of you. So I just wanted to I just co-sign and appreciate that. The main thing that stood out to me, my point this week, and I'm so glad he mentioned it, and he said the word emotional intelligence. And I was like, is he going there? He's going there. But really, he's already gone there. And how I took it, as he's been talking about this under the umbrella of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, being able to work with a man, and being able to, manage relationships and things of that nature, being intentional, knowing what you want and why you want it. These are all under the umbrella of emotional intelligence. And so I thought that from a branding side note, with my business hat on, from a branding standpoint, Kevin is also modeling how he's been on brand this whole time with his messaging. It's very consistent, but then also he's trying to really coach men and women to do relationships in a healthy way. And the key to that is emotional intelligence. And I'm so glad he said the word, because that's what he's been talking about the whole time, emotional intelligence, because we tend to value intelligence, which is good, but we know what the research is saying. How you handle your emotions, how you're disciplined, how you regulate in the midst of trauma. Side note, a lot of my work as a trauma therapist is teaching people how to self-regulate. And as a human being in general, we go through stressors and trials and suffering, and how we're able to bounce back, not in a way that we avoid different things, but in a way where we can self-regulate and de-escalate and discipline ourselves to, sort of manage our emotions in a way where we're being effective. And so I wanted to kind of say on that point, there's a lot of instructors that do emotional intelligence training, but the one I tend to like is through Daniel Goleman. He, there's a lot of talk about emotional intelligence. People have their own definition, but I love that he highlights 5 attributes of emotional intelligence. And he says self-awareness, which Kevin already talked to us about, and that's the ability to be aware of not just what you're feeling, but what you're thinking, but aware of others' emotions as well. And then self-management is another one, which is, again, Kevin hits on this, discipline. And then for me as a clinician, I would say self-regulation. How are you able to regulate yourself? How are you able to say no to that hamburger? I love a good French fry. How do you able to say no to that? Or when you're feeling high stress, not acting out in that, but able to regulate through meditation, prayer, or whatnot to ground yourself. So self-management. The other attribute of emotional intelligence, the third part that Daniel Goleman talks about, is social awareness, empathy, I think that you mentioned, Margaret, that woo factor, or really that ability to read the room and navigate these situations. Are you socially aware? Are you aware how you show up socially? Are you fidgety and all these different things, right? Socially aware. And then the last part that Daniel talked about, 5 attributes of emotional intelligence, is the relationship management, how you influence. And Kevin talks a lot about this as women, how we inspire our husbands or the people that we're dating. Can we inspire a man? Can we work with a man? Teamwork. And part of working with a man and working with any organization or if you look at it from an employee standpoint, is, do you know your role? And that's essentially what he's talking about. So I thought it was beautiful that he brought it all together in the context of relationship, but he's really talking about the power of emotional intelligence. So
I love that. That is so amazing. What strikes me with what you said, this emotional intelligence is something that used to be, and I believe should be, kind of our feminine superpower, right? We are the softer, nurturing ones. We are the ones that kind of build relationships and bring things together. And Kevin has talked often about how modern women now, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between a woman and a man, not only in size, you guys know I struggle with that, but, just in vulgarity and loudness and all of that. These are things that, ladies, I have shared that, being corporate for so long, sometimes you take on some of those masculine tendencies. You can reverse it. The relationship that I'm in now is very different because the man that I have will not have anything but, a woman who is feminine. So there will not be loud talking, or there will not be, challenging or being unruly in public. It's just not on the table. But the benefit of being, more feminine, having that emotional EQ, so for me, so far outweighs, any sacrifice. The other thing, the last thing that I'll talk about this week when it comes to sacrifice. So I'm talking about 2 triggering topics that Kevin has talked about. So the first one was your children being an asset. And the second one is going to be, he's talked about this sharing a high value man. And, we all kind of have that, visceral reaction when Kevin talks about that. And, what I will say is that there is some truth to, women have thought that we are going to be first. We're going to be the only. He's going to worship the ground that we walk in. That is not the man that you want. I'll share, my guy is being groomed for VP. He's somebody that I knew, from my past and was, a Henry, and I've watched his career progress. And we're about to say we are the same age. So as I'm starting to I want to work from home, kind of slow it down. We have a plan to retire me at 55. He's like guns blazing. He's going to conferences. He's taking executive management coaching. He's doing all of this. And I have to understand and be on his plan when it comes to when he has time. He has time, and being appreciative of the time that he makes for me. He shared with me because, we can talk this way when he goes to conferences, and you all know there's that, woman or women in the office that are, a little bit, flirty when maybe they've had, too much to drink. And, he'll tell me stories about, oh yeah, so-and-so, she was like, oh, can you make sure I get to my room? Or can you check on me, make sure I'm, not late coming down in the morning? If I allowed my mind to go there, I could really just go down this spiral of what is he doing? Who is he doing it with? What's happening? And I just have to say, I made a decision a long time ago to not look for trouble. And when it comes to, female friends that I had or have, there was a lot of explaining that I used to do because, Lisa, you had talked about this in the past. People will kind of say, well, what is he doing and where is he going and why not this and why not that? And I just said, you know what? If it doesn't work for you, don't let it work for you. It works for me. Fast forward now in my mid-40s, I have friends that, because I learned to shut my mouth about my relationship, and they'll ask me, are you still with so-and-so? Oh yeah, we're great. And, we went out for Valentine's, and it was actually his idea. He was like, I see you doing, good with your, healthy eating and your exercise and you're taking care of the kids. You know what? Here's a budget, plan something, let's go. And I was so grateful for that. But it's the reward that you get from following a man who's got a vision and not getting involved in the minutia and not having to have all the answers. So yes, once you realize that you're not going to be first, and if you're okay with that, the lifestyle that you have with the high value man can be very rewarding if that's something that you're interested in. But that was about you.
So this is such a good conversation. Like each of you are saying things and I'm like, oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. I want to address that. But it's kind of like, there's so much, right? But I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, Maggie. And I want to quickly go back to what Hermisha was saying about finances and what you were saying, Maggie, about it too, because resident banker, like I can't even tell you guys how busy things have been with the Russian sanctions and the stock market. But I think for women, we do need to get a handle on our finances. Like right now is not a good time to have balances on your credit cards, right? You think about APR, you think about all of that stuff. It's actually a really good time to save. There's just little things. Like I remember getting gas earlier this week and I was like, did I just pay $70? And it's just like to fill up, and you think about gas prices and oil prices and everything that's happening in the impact of the economy. I'm not going to get into that too much because I know Lisa's going to cover it. But what I do want to talk about is image, right? Kevin talks about image all the time. He's an image consultant. He talks about the ABCD, the appearance, your behavior, your communication, and your digital footprint, what that looks like, right? I've noticed on the Instagram shows, right? There are a few young women that do show up, and you can kind of, because we communicate with our behavior as well. There was a level of being serious and trying to get some advice, but there's also when you have a demeanor in a setting for that, you have to just know when to turn some things on and off. Like I know some of us are very expressive with the way that we talk. Sometimes we talk with our hands. Sometimes if we have like a joking or goofy personality, that comes out, right? But I think just knowing when to turn that on and off is a useful skill. Because the way that I talk to you guys in this platform is probably very different from a boardroom or different from when I'm with my friends and I'm more relaxed. Like I think we just need to know when to shift gears into those places. So for FutureWise, huge thing to work on, but wanted to share that this week.
Absolutely. We've got to be mindful of how we show up. And that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for, us wives who come here and consistently improve, because we do want to get better while we're giving back. All right, Lisa, any final thoughts this week?
Yeah, I was going to talk about, these Instagram shows. They be really getting me because, you just see like your friends, because I have friends that are in their late 30s, early 40s, and a couple of friends that are even older than me, going on, late 40s. But anyway, what I really thought about when I heard there was a lady who was 37-year-old, she called herself a payroll officer, and she's in New York, and she's like, I was with a man for 13 years, and he was like, she didn't have any kids, but he's like, why did you allow yourself to waste 13 years of your prime years with a man that you didn't? He was like, well, he didn't want to marry me, but his mama wanted me to marry him. His mama bought me a ring, and it was just, the more she talked, the worse it got. And I was just like, he's like, you wasted all this time, and she's like 37, and she's hoping to, still find someone. And I hope she does. But I see a lot of friends I have who, she's talking about her career, and he's like, man, that's not a career. And I kind of thought about that too. I'm like, when people ask me what did I used to do or what I do in the past, I'm like, my career was IT. But when I really think about it, it wasn't really career. It was a good paying job that I was set up and that career path by my father to do, but it wasn't a career the way Kevin talks about a career. And that's fine. Because I'm married to I'm married to a Henry, and he was, set up by the military for his career or job or whatever you want to call it. My husband works for a union, and so there's different levels. But if you're happy with what you're doing, I don't know if my husband would call his job a career, but he likes what he does. He likes working on aircraft and stuff like that. He likes working for the union. He likes the camaraderie and the people he works with and stuff. But and I always thought my job was a career because I just loved what I did. I just felt so great at my job. You just couldn't tell me anything. So, but the other thing I was going to mention about the 37-year-old lady that was talking is that, she kind of wasted all that time with one man. And he was asking her, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And what is your last, what does 65 to 85 look like for you? And, no one can ever answer these questions. They get frustrated and try to dance around it. But he's like, really, 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 what are you going to do? And I started thinking about friends I see on Facebook and Instagram lately, who are still single, no kids, about my age or close to, we're not, but maybe within 5 years of each other. And they're complaining about stuff. When you watch their little memes and stuff, they're like, oh, rent is too high and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, man, you guys are still paying rent. And, if you like Kevin says, you would have got with a man earlier, or if you would have been with a man, you might have had a home by now. And as a real estate agent, a lot of people are saying, if you're renting, your rent is you're paying more than rent than you would for a mortgage. And if you have a mortgage and your mortgage is at a good place, you're paying less than what people pay for rent for the same amount of house or apartment or whatever. So I'm like thinking of friends of mine that I'm seeing online saying, who's going to help me with this rent and stuff? And I'm like, you guys are still paying rent. You haven't bought a house, and now everything is going up. And it's just hard to, a lot of the stuff that Kevin is saying is coming to fruition for a lot of people. When you look at how things are rising, if you weren't sharing your life with someone and having someone to help pay half the bills or whatever, it's really hard to see. And you don't want to just say, I told you so or anything. I don't want to say that, but it's just hard to see people in these situations. And it just makes me relate back to what Kevin says, and it kind of brings it all, the ladies can't answer the question, what am I going to do in 20 or when I'm in those late years? But when you look at stuff like what I'm seeing, I can see, oh, there's what he's talking about. There's the answer to that. This is why you want to be with a man. Or this is why you want to, pull your resources together and get along with a man and get on his page and stuff. Because right now we're seeing it in more ways than not. So that was just a topic I thought about, and I'm always constantly thinking about when Kevin brings women on the show and they have these topics and they can't answer. And I start seeing the answers myself in real life. So hopefully that helps.
It absolutely does. Thank you so much, Lisa. Y'all, let me be the one to tell you, I'm at the front of this line. 50 is coming. Winter is coming. I saw a little meme online. I think it said something like one day you're wild and free, and then the next day you're into air fryers. That's me. It is happening. But, again, finances, and we know about compounding interest in a good way with investments and in a bad way, with debt. If you put in the work, even if you have a setback, like I've had a setback, you can definitely land on your feet and make sure that, at 50, you're not still paying rent. But Hermisha, what last thoughts did you have this week?
Yes to all of it, ladies, the financial piece, all of it. And the biggest thing, I guess I just really circle back to is the self-management, really what we're talking about. And actually it goes into what he mentioned. I think the question he posed this week is, are you on a high values man level? And he goes there. Do you weigh less than a man, in terms of our taking care of our temple, our bodies? And I know that may sound a little harsh when he said that, but I understood what he was getting at. And but that self-management and that discipline, but there are situations where we get out of alignment, we get overwhelmed and the weight comes on, and but again, it comes back to that emotional intelligence. Are you self-aware to know how you're feeling and then to do something about that? And that's why I often say to my clients when I'm doing therapy, honestly, the self-awareness is the easiest part. It's what we do with what we know, right? And so for most of us, it can be the easiest part. I will actually preface that. But what do we do with what we know now? That's typically the hard part. Not everybody's in the gym, which is why, sometimes the gyms are crowded in the beginning of the year, and then, they kind of wean on out. Where everybody go? I thought we was doing this, So if it was easy, everybody will be starting off from January to December full in the gym, right? And so that's the point I'm trying to make. Again, under the umbrella of emotional intelligence, specifically, Daniel Goleman would say the second attribute of that is self-management. So, and how we steward our temples, ladies. So myself included.
Oh, that was so good. Yes. And I have to raise my hand on that. You guys know I have struggled with that and I am on a journey as well. But what is so inspiring is that one, we're self-aware, and then two, we're doing something about it, that discipline. And we get credit for that, ladies. I mean, putting our action into what we say, because what has Kevin always said? Men are watching. All men are watching. And, it's getting ready to be another summer, not hot girl summer for the wives, but, then it'll be fall and winter again. So as long as we're continuing to move forward, hope is not all lost. I think this was a fantastic show. I think I'm going to wrap it up unless anybody had any last thoughts. But until next time, we'll see you guys on the next show. Bye.